All of a sudden, out of nowhere, there's a new kid in town vying for the United Nations Secretary General position, and it looks like she'll be giving Guyana's Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett a run for her money. Guys, I'm telling you, it looks like there could be a major upset in the UNSG race. Hello. Welcome back to the podcast. We're now on episode 177. Without any further hesitation, let's get to it. At first, the race for the next United Nations Secretary General looked like it was settling into a clear pattern. Guyana's very own Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett had built steady momentum and has taken the lead. Following the first informal Security Council straw poll at the end of July, Rodrigues-Birkett sat firmly among the leaders. By the second poll, Rodrigues-Birkett took the lead. Then, on August 17, 2026, Ivon Abaki officially entered the race for United Nations Secretary General. Abaki formally entered the race after she was formally nominated by the government of the Kingdom of Tonga. Abaki is now the 8th candidate to join the contest to succeed the current UN Secretary General António Guterres. And suddenly, the race felt different. It was as if the mood shifted. What had seemed a measured contest among established names now carries the possibility of a major upset. Remember, Ivon Abaki did not appear on the first ballot. On August 23, 2026, Abaki was questioned at length by different representatives from countries around the world. In essence, what those countries wanted to know from Abaki was, if she wins the race, how could she make a difference?
More than ever, we need the UN. We need to work together. It's not about choosing just a Secretary General. It's about working together to find ways to solve the problems that are now in the world and that are going to be even more because of the problems that are happening and we couldn't prevent. So from now on, we have to work to solve what we have, like Russia, Ukraine, like Israel and Gaza, like the things that are happening in Africa, to solve and to work together to prevent those that we can prevent to happen.
Did I mention that Abaki is multilingual? Given that they are heading a global institution with member states that speak a variety of languages. Let's take a closer look at who Ivon Abaki is. Ivon Abaki was born in Guayaquil, Ecuador, to Lebanese immigrant parents. She spent her formative years in Lebanon, living through the Civil War. That experience, she has said repeatedly, forged a lifelong commitment to peace. She tells the story of holding her children in a basement in Beirut while bombs fell and promised that if she survived, she would devote her life to preventing conflict. And Abaki has kept that promise. Abaki's resume is unusually broad. Compared to the other candidates, including Guyana's Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett, Abaki served as Ecuador's first female ambassador to the United States twice. She also served as an ambassador to France and to Qatar, with non-resident accreditation across much of the Middle East. Abaki sat in cabinet as Minister of Foreign Trade, Industry, Regional Integration, Fisheries, and Competitiveness. She presided over the Andean Parliament. She helped negotiate the 1998 Brasilia Peace Agreement, which ended the long border conflict between Ecuador and Peru. Still, she's the only candidate who can point to a successfully brokered peace between two sovereign United Nations member states. She's also been a visible advocate for the Amazon and the Galapagos, leading to the Yasuni ITT initiative and helping secure major debt for nature and marine protection deals. Did I mention her multilingualism? Did I mention Abaki's multilingualism? Comfortable and fluent in languages in both the global north and global south. She also openly networked with figures across the American political spectrum. Abaki presents herself as a bridge builder, one who will leave her desk in New York and go to the conflict zones herself. Now let's compare that with Guyana's Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett. Born in an indigenous Arawak community in Guyana's remote Barima-Waini region, She grew up without running water or electricity and studied by oil lamp. A scholarship took her to Canada. Upon her return to Guyana, she started working with Indigenous communities and then entered government. At the age of 27, she became the youngest minister in Guyana's cabinet as Minister of Amerindian Affairs. She would later go on to serve as Guyana's Foreign Affairs Minister, the first woman and the highest-ranking Indigenous person in that role, and that was before moving into the United Nations system with the Food and Agriculture Organization, and since 2020 as Guyana's permanent representative in New York. She sat on the Security Council during Guyana's recent term and argues that the next Secretary General must restore credibility through practical, pragmatic leadership that delivers across peace, development, and human rights.
Carolyn, Rodrigues-Birkett, the Security Council is increasingly paralyzed by vetoes. As Secretary General, how would you make it effective when its most powerful body cannot act?
I believe that, as I said before, there is always space for the Secretary General. I've served on the Security Council, and I have seen in times when the Security Council could not act, when certain members or groups of members had different views on issues, when the Secretary General, this current Secretary General, was able to act. I would want to follow in that same path, because you bring neutrality as Secretary General. You bring a lack of motive only to help the vulnerable and those that are in need of the UN's assistance. And so I think I would capitalize on that neutrality, capitalize on the tools at my disposal, but also on the footprint that the UN has on the ground, that we could receive all the information that we need to make certain proposals to the Security Council.
Her supporters see a candidate of the Global South, one who understands small state realities and Indigenous perspectives from lived experience. We have to admit the contrast is sharp when we compare Ivon Abaki and Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett. Abaki brings classic high diplomacy, personal mediation credentials, and cross-regional networks and experience. Rodrigues-Birkett brings generational change, Indigenous identity, and recent hands-on Security Council experience. Abaki is the seasoned outsider who entered the race late. The other candidate, Rodrigues-Birkett, is the current frontrunner who has already climbed the informal ranking. The rest of the field remains formidable. Costa Rica's Rebecca Greenspan, head of UNCTAD and former vice president, led the first straw poll. Argentina's Rafael Grossi, Director General of the IAEA, consistently remains among the top 3 candidates. Well, up until Ivon Abaki entered the race, we have to wait and see what the next straw poll will say. We also have the former Chilean President Michelle Bachelet, the former Ecuadorian Foreign Minister Maria Fernanda Espinosa, the former Senegalese President Macky Sall, and Ugandan diplomat Olara Otunu complete the list of 8 candidates. 5 of the 8 are women, raising the real prospect that the United Nations could, for the first time in its 80-year history, be led by a woman. What comes next is the critical phase. More informal straw polls are expected. Ballots will eventually distinguish permanent members' positions, revealing any veto threats. The Security Council must eventually recommend a candidate, one that secures 9 votes and avoid a veto from any of the 5 permanent members. The 5 permanent members are the United States, China, France, Russia, and the United Kingdom. Only then does the General Assembly formally appoint the next UN Secretary General. The process is still ongoing. Plus, there is a possibility that new candidates can enter the race. But Abaki's late entry has already altered the conversation. Whether it alters the outcome is anyone's guess. Rodrigues-Birkett holds the current lead, but the race is far from settled. The United Nations faces declining stature, budgetary strain, and a world thick with conflict. The next Secretary General will inherit an institution many believe is in need of renewal. When we compare Carolyn Rodrigues-Birkett with Ivon Abaki, we're looking at two very different candidates, two vastly different backgrounds, two very different career paths, two very different sets of qualifications, two very different sets of experience. Not to mention, Abaki has decades of exposure on the international scene. Will Abaki take the lead? Or is she just another candidate on the list of 8 hoping to become the next United Nations General Secretary? As we wait for the next straw polls, let us be reminded that the race is not for the swift, but for the one who does not get any veto from any of the 5 permanent member states. From the United States, China, Russia, the United Kingdom, or France.
I believe that I have acquired these skills during the period of my time as Minister of Foreign Affairs of Guyana, Minister of Amerindian Affairs, as an international civil servant, and as a permanent representative right here in these halls representing my country. I do believe that I am ready for the task ahead, and I thank you.